everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. Today I'm joined by Scott Sattler, which, if you are not aware, Scott is an ex-Rugby League player and now commentates for Fox Sports. So today we're going to be hearing all about Scott's story and getting to know what he thinks about the rugby league community now and when he was playing. So to kick us off, as always, welcome, Scott. And to start us off, do you just want to explain to everyone who you are with yourself now?
So, Ash, yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for allowing me to come on, I should say. Obviously, knowing your family since I was a baby, basically grew up with your beautiful mum, and your pop is my godfather. So, but in saying that, my football career started as a junior. I didn't start playing until I was about 12 or 13 years of age. My dad didn't let me play because he thought the game was too rough. I don't know whether he thought I was not strong enough for it, but it wasn't until I was about 17 when I started getting a little bit of success through representative sides and in my school rugby league, my final year of school, where I thought, I could potentially get a contract somewhere one day. So I started playing what they call grade rugby league in 1991 and retired in 2004. So, rugby league opens up a lot of doors for you, and I didn't stay at the one club. I was at four different clubs over my career, and had some really great days in rugby league. Had some really bad years as well. Years when we told we weren't even going to get paid at the start of the year. We just kept turning up and training each day and playing, and then you go through all that adversity, and then at the end of the day, at the end of my career, I get some great success. So, my footy career was one that. I was a sort of a player that I had to try and extract every little bit of talent that I had to try and match it with a lot of the other naturally gifted players. So even though I had a father that was naturally gifted and represented his country and won multiple premierships with your pop at South Sydney, I still had to work pretty hard to get over a lot of obstacles. So I was really proud of what I was able to extract out of my footy career. And then post-career, I was fortunate enough in my final year, Ash, of my footy career when I actually just donated my time. I volunteered my time, didn't expect any pay. I went to 2GB radio and just said, listen, if you ever need a current player that needs to come in and fill in at any stage, I'm happy to do it, just free of charge. So if we used to play on a Friday or a Saturday, I used to go in on a Sunday from 12 till sort of 6 o'clock and do a pre-game show and call the footy with Ray Hadley and the Daryl Broman and the gang there, the late great Bozo Fulton and a really trusted and respected journalist who was working there as well, Peter Frelingos, passed away, and he suddenly passed away, Peter Frelingos' passing actually opened up an opportunity where a lot of the guys he was working with were so distraught that they couldn't work anymore for a period of time. So I was asked to sort of sit in the chair and just fill in until the guys came back to work, and they were mourning. And so I was happy to help out. And fortunately for me, from that day forward, I've been involved in the media ever since, from 2004 onwards, and still in the media today. I call the Rugby League each weekend for SEN on radio, and I do a radio show every night as well with former Rugby League great Gary Belcher. And so, I've always stayed in touch with work for Fox Sports, as you said, for a number of years. And I've also got my own investigation firm, like a private investigation firm, which I've had for a number of years, myself and my business partner. I've got my fingers in a couple of pies.
You got a lot going on, that's for sure. And what a great career. It sounds like you've been really, really successful and you love what you do, and that's the main thing. I want to take you back to the first moments when you decided you wanted to play rugby league. Did you think that it was driven by your own passions, or there was a little push from your father to fall in love with the game?
No, well, I fell in love with the game purely by him taking me to games every weekend, wherever it may be. It would be on the Gold Coast to watch the Gold Coast Vikings representative team play, or he'd take me to Brisbane to watch my favourite team, which was South's Magpies, which, again, your pop and my father played with a guy by the name of Bob McCarthy. And Elwyn, your pop, Elwyn Walters, and my dad and Bob McCarthy were close friends. And so he coached South Magpies. So I used to go up there and I fell in love with Mal Meninga as a player. And so basically I'd go most weekends, but I still wasn't playing rugby league. And then I started playing and my dad didn't want me to play. But he just got sick of me just continually asking to play. So he finally took me along and I was terrible. So it took me sort of 3 or 4 years to get going. Like I said, I didn't start playing till I think it was just before my 12th birthday, and it might have been just after my 12th birthday. Yeah, and so I started playing and just loved it. And your parents drive you around to whatever sport or whatever vocation you've got in your life at the time. And and I got to an age when I got to sort of 16, 17, mainly 17, when I figured it out. I figured rugby league out. I thought, and my dad never pushed me. Never, ever once did he push me. And he's never overcritical of me. But it was really tough. It was tough knowing that your father was who he was, and there was probably a bigger expectation from other people. My dad was this amazing captain and leader that won 4 premierships at South Sydney and was always seen as that alpha male. And a lot of people expected me to, and I was a completely different player to my father. So that was difficult trying to live up to the expectations of people and the way that my dad played. So, but also uses it as a real advantage as well, because I thought, your last name's Sattler, it's not like Smith or Jones. So people are actually going to be taking notice of you. So if they are, well, then you've just got to be able to perform. So I use it as an advantage as well. And I've got no doubt it got me picked in representative sides when I was a younger player. I mean, I think it's just part and parcel with the game. That's not my fault. But when I got to 17, I realised that, I made the Queensland Schoolboys representative side, and I thought, I could possibly get some interest here, and I did. And I was, and I'm glad that I pursued it the way that I did. My dad gave me some really good advice when he knew that I was going to start playing it on a more serious level. He gave me some really good advice when I was 17 or 18. He said, you're not going to be the most talented player, that you're going to come up against all these other really talented players. But there's one thing you can control, is you can be fitter than everyone else. So you're going to have to work harder than everyone else to make it. So, from that day on, under his guidance, I did. I tried to give myself a chance to compete, at least at the highest possible level.
Yeah. Did you feel that, you said there before, that you felt like entering into that space and having your dad as this powerful rugby league player that was known, that there was an expectation there, but did you feel as well that you had to prove to your father that you were good enough to play the game?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. And that wasn't from pressure from him. That was just me. I suppose it's like any child wanting, especially a son wanting to make their father proud. And for me, it was probably a little bit more. Our space was a little bit more, because he never wanted me to live up to any expectations. But if you're going to play rugby league, well, there is going to be this comparison. So, I did feel it. I feel as though I always wanted to try and make him happy. If I didn't hear from him, when I had become a first grade rugby league player, I was playing week in, week out, every week, and had sort of been able to cement a place in my position each week. If I didn't hear from him, I knew that he wasn't happy with my game. But if I'd had a really good game, he'd be the first to ring me and say, geez, you did some really good things tonight, mate. I loved it when you did this. But he never offered me advice. He never said, you need to be doing this. He never did that at all. I remember when I was 14 and in my juniors, and I was playing for Runaway Bay Seagulls on the Gold Coast. We're playing against Burleigh Bears, and this team, they'd been together since they were under sevens, and I'd only joined them like when I was 12, and they'd never beaten this Burleigh side. And I remember in under 15s, I was 14, and we'd beaten them this one Friday night. It's like it happened yesterday. And I was so excited because I was able to do this really big tackle in the game that had a big bearing on the game. And so I ran into my dad, and we owned pubs on the Gold Coast, and we lived in the pubs as well. So I arrived home after. I remember running into the bar and saying to my dad, Dad, we won. We beat Burleigh. And I remember he said, oh, that's great. And he just turned his back. And to me, it was like this, oh, shit, it's not enough. Yeah. It's actually not enough. I suffer. One of my greatest fears is rejection. I reckon it stems back to that day where I felt as though I felt as though my dad wasn't really that proud of me.
Yeah.
So from that day on, I was always trying to prove something to him. And I didn't need to, but yeah, I found at times that his silence spoke louder than any coach or anyone that would write anything about you in the paper or whatever it may be. His silence actually said more.
And do you think that pushed you then to be fitter, to be stronger, and to really work on your game?
I always remembered heeding those words of his when he just said, you can always be fitter than everyone else. So just, make sure you give yourself every chance. I did that. But it was a really good lesson, actually. There's about 18 months in my rugby league career when I didn't. And the results showed in my form. It's just like, it's no different if you're studying or whatever it may be, that if you don't follow a routine and you're not willing to sort of go above and beyond, well, you'll just get what you give. And so with me, I just knew that whenever I was always following his advice, my rugby league was always better. So I continued that for 90% of my career. And when I didn't hear from him, I used to get the shits a little bit, and I'd sulk like any child would.
Yeah.
And then I'd ring him.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" He goes, "Yeah, good." I said, "Did you catch the game the other night?" He goes, "Yeah, I did." What'd you think? "Oh, wasn't too bad. You didn't really get that involved, did you?" And I went, the game plan sort of took it away from me a little bit. And but he would never give me advice. He'd never say, "You need to do that," which I really appreciated. And I think he understood really early on, from a really early age, that when I started playing footy, that he didn't want to be one of those parents that are on the sideline giving advice. Sounds worse coming from a person that's actually been there, done it, when you're seen as this overbearing parent. So, yeah, he was very mindful of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have watched some commentary of when you were playing, and even some people used to describe you as John Sattler's son instead of Scott Sattler. Did you find that affected you, that you were always almost in his shadow?
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't bother me in the slightest, because I was really proud to be his son, because I remember growing up and I didn't realise how important he was or how popular he was in rugby league. But I remember he took me to the first State of Origin in 1980, and I was 8 years old. And I remember everyone kept stopping him and getting his autograph. And I was wondering why people kept stopping him. I didn't understand why. I just knew people made a big fuss about him, but I didn't know why. And we lived in the pubs and people would always be making a fuss. But it wasn't until I went to that State of Origin match. And I remember going home and saying, "Oh, Mum, everyone's stopping Dad." And it took us forever to get out of the stadium. And so then when I got a little bit older and I found this big chest of all his old jerseys and all these scrapbooks, Mum. And I used to sit there and read these scrapbooks and I'd wear his jerseys around the house, and I'd play rugby league games and act like I was all these different players. So, when I got to an adult and I started hearing, I'd take a hit up and they'd say, "Here he is, Scott Sattler, of course, son of the great South Sydney legend, John Sattler." People say, "Oh, you must really get the shits with that." And I go, "Why would I?" He's a great man. He was a great rugby league player. He's a great captain and leader. He's a terrific father. And he was just always a really great supporter of mine. I used to be proud. I used to use it as a badge of honour, to be quite honest, because he is. But one thing he did do for me that living in his shadow, that he was always renowned for, people called him Gentleman John, because he was always so chivalrous around ladies, and he would always, he'd always make people feel like they belonged, even if he didn't know them. He made everyone feel welcome to his pubs. He was a great hotelier, a great publican. And so what he actually taught me was, he taught me that you have to be this really good person off the field. And I'd like to think, I'd like to think you'd have to go a long way to talk to rugby league fans that I've come across, if I play for Penrith or the West Tigers or the Gold Coast, that they ever said that I ignored them, because I was always very mindful of the way that Dad treated a lot of people. And so, he paved a pretty good pathway for me. And growing up in the pubs as well, he exposed us to a lot of stuff that kids shouldn't be exposed to. But what it did do, I always use a saying that growing up, I could always relate to the bricklayer and the barrister. So I could go down the public bar and sit there and have a conversation as a 12-year-old with the bricklayer who's just spent 12 hours in the sun, who's having a beer on a Friday afternoon. And then I could wander up into the lounge bar where my mum would be sitting there having her scotch and half scotch and water, talking to one of the barristers who's just overseen one of the biggest cases in Queensland. So I had this natural ability to be able to talk to a lot of demographics, and it held me in really good stead. But that was also the education my mum and dad gave me with how I should be off the field as well in life, and don't ever think you're better than anyone else. And I've liked to think that I haven't. And fans will always constantly send me private messages on social media, and I know there's a lot of sports people that would never engage in that conversation. But I feel honoured that people feel as though they feel comfortable to reach out to you and ask you your opinion on something. So I'd like to think I'd never change that.
That's amazing to think that, as you said, you're not just growing as a player on the field, but also off the field. And I think that's so important in the role that rugby league players do have as well within the community. I want to talk about one of the highlights of your career, which I did look up. There was this try-saving tackle that seems to be attached to your name when you played for Penrith. Now, there was a moment there where you were running across the field and you tackled this player and took him out when he was about to score. Can you take me through, as a person that does not knows the game but has never played the game, what goes through your head during that moment? Do you think, because a lot of players go, oh, no, he's going to score, that's it, let him score. What drove you to go and tackle that player and then take him out?
Oh, probably determination. Probably all that training that I did each and every day to probably get me to a situation where if I was asked to try and complete a task, I was able to do it. But I've got to say, Ash, that was like 6 minutes of madness. It was so many things going through your head. You can't hear the crowd at all. There's 83,000 people there, and in a grand final, the biggest game of your life, in wet conditions. But I've got to say, the old saying, preparation makes perfect. 2 years before, we get this new coach that comes to the Penrith Panthers. His name's John Lang. And he pulls me in for a meeting and he says, this is the way I want you to play your position. And without getting too technical, he said to me, and he had a very simplified approach to life and rugby league. He thought that sport and life just connected. He said, if you make the right decisions off the field, you'll make the right decisions on the field. If you live a stressful, haphazard, risky life, you're going to take risks on the field and it's going to hurt your teammates. So yeah, there's really simplified approach to life, and he correlated both of them beautifully. If we were whinging about how hard we were training, he'd say, okay, go grab a shovel. I want you to go and dig holes for the next 12 hours for the next 2 months, and tell me how lucky you are to be playing what game you're playing right now. So he always had really good balance. And so he had this meeting, and he said to me, Ash, he said, this is the way I want you to play your position. And he said, okay. He said, on the fifth tackle, okay, there's 6 tackles in rugby league, each set of 6. On the fifth tackle, when we're about to put a kick in, I want you just to start heading in behind the defensive line. And he used to always use the saying, just in case you needed. Just want you to do it every time, just in case you needed. So from that very next training session, and we did our ball work, we go, 4th tackle, 5th tackle, and our kick, we're about to put a kick up. I'd just start wandering in behind, just slowly, just jogging in behind the defensive line, just in case I was needed. So I did that every training session and every game for 2 years. But then my last game at the Penrith Panthers, because I was leaving the Penrith Panthers after that game, my last game at the Penrith Panthers, at the club that I absolutely loved and still love to this day. Like, I just had such great memories with the community and the people out there. And so my last game, after doing every session and every game for 2 years for the club, I was actually asked and I was needed to complete it. So John Lang actually prepared me for that moment 2 years prior. It wasn't something that just said, oh, I'm just going to go chase him. He prepared me for that for 2 years. And so when I got into the situation, it was like 6 or 7 seconds of madness, but I was pretty calm in the moment because he'd prepared me for it. And I had one of my players yelling at me in my ear saying, listen, you just chase him. And if he stepped back inside and I couldn't get him, well, I'm going to be there to help you out as well. So, yeah, he gave me the confidence to know that if the moment ever arose, that I'd be able to complete it. So, preparation meant everything in that one tiny little moment, which, like I said, it was my last game for the club. We won the premiership and I was able to jump on my horse and drift off into the distance, into the sunset, with a great personal memory. And also a memory that, when I go back out to Penrith, a lot of Penrith fans, still remember that grand final, not that moment, but that grand final and how much it meant to them.
Yeah. Wow, I had goosebumps listening to that. That's amazing to think that coaches as well can have that impact on players. When you're playing the game, are you running just on adrenaline?
Well, I think your body goes through all these mixed emotions, physically and emotionally, and depending on where you are, at what age you are, how much experience you've got, what the scoreboard looks like. So you go through these range of emotions, physically and emotionally. So, for example, I was a player that played 80 minutes. I didn't have a rest during the game. And so you go from adrenaline when you run out, adrenaline for the first sort of 3 or 4 minutes. Then your body starts asking you to go into composure mode, where you've got to be composed and be aware of what's going on. And then you have a break after 40 minutes. And probably the 10 minutes before that 40 minutes, your body's starting to go into like energy wastage, where you're starting to call on reserves and your fitness and your conditioning. And so then you have a break for 10 or 12 minutes at half time. And then you've got to emotionally recharge yourself again. And you've got to go again for another 40 minutes. So your body goes through. And then, if you're getting beaten by 20 or 30 and you're not going to win the game, the last 5 or 10 minutes, you either go through this period where you just try and do everything you can to try and get as close as possible to the opposition scoreline, or some people go into this safety mode where they don't want to get injured in case they miss out on playing next week and they know they're going to lose the game. And then you got the situation like the State of Origin on the Wednesday, State of Origin 1 of the Wednesday that's just gone by, and the scoreline's so close that your body takes you to a point where you've got no more energy left in your body. You're trying to find oxygen in your lungs. Your legs are burning with lactic acid, but something's just got to keep you going. And that's what you see. That really sorts out the men from the boys, and in this day and age, the women from the girls, because that how far you're willing to take your body and take it past the point of extreme, where when the final hooter goes and you're excited after a win, or you're disappointed after a really close loss, and you've taken your body through those extreme moments, that after about 10 minutes in the dressing shed, you just collapse. Your body just shuts down. So there's been lots of games where your body just shuts down, really big games where psychologically it's such a big game and you waste a lot of nervous energy leading into the game. Then you play the game physically and your body just shuts down. So in the big games, that's what happens. People say, oh, how enjoyable is Origin or grand finals or big games against your mortal enemies? It's not enjoyable at all, because you're going to put your body through something that's so extreme that, one, you get a season-ending injury, or you're going to take your body to the point where you're going to collapse after 80 minutes. It's not enjoyable at all. What's enjoyable is the potential outcome of winning, where you get to celebrate with your mates. That's only short-lived, because then you've got to go again the following week. So, the game itself it's like life, I suppose. And, we got it easy as sports people. We do get it easy as sports people, because I got so much admiration for the people who wake up at 3:30 in the morning and jump in a truck and drive across the country and have to do that time and time again. We got it easy, but our body went through absolute torture physically, more so than emotionally.
Yeah, Wow. Is it worth it? I mean, there's a lot of conversations that are circulating in the media at the moment about, concussion and the pressure that is put on the body physically, and even we both know how that can play a toll in the long term. Is it worth it for players to be putting that much pressure on their body physically?
It's a really profound question that not a lot of rugby league players or rugby union players or gridiron players get asked a lot, because people go, yeah, of course it's worth it. Absolutely, it's worth it. Yeah. And it is worth it. But when you retire and then you've been retired 15, 20 years and you can't remember where you put your car keys, or you've got a diary that you carry around with you every day because you've got to write down everything, just everything. And I look at my father, who's turning 80 this year and suffering from early bouts of dementia. And I think, is it all worth it? And you go, well, I think it is, because the great days far outweigh the bad days. And I know sometimes those great days may become a distant memory and some of us may not remember them. But the good part about it is we've got DVDs and we've got, YouTube and these sort of things now, where we continue to look back in our lives and realise that we sacrifice something for a very short period of your life. Some may get 2 or 3 years out of their career. Some are lucky enough to get 10, 12, 15 years out of their career. So it's a small space of your life when you weigh out your entire 75, 80, wherever you live to. But it's a short part of your life that you pack so much into. And it is worth it in the end, Ash, because it opens up opportunities and doors that, if you're willing to take advantage of them, can create a life for you for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of those that spent some time in the media and just volunteered my time. And, nearly 20 years later, I'm still doing it, practically on a full-time basis. So, yeah, it's worth it because it can open up a lot of doors as well for you.
Amazing. And looking at that, as you mentioned, you pack so much in a short period of time. You invest so much time into rugby league and the game. And then all of a sudden, for a lot of players, it does stop. How does retirement affect players, and how did you feel it affected you?
Affected me badly. Yeah, really badly. I had a good job. I was working for the then NRL Gold Coast, the Gold Coast NRL bid team, which are now the Gold Coast Titans. So I sort of retired and went straight into this role trying to help the Gold Coast get a 16th NRL team. Exciting. Yeah, really exciting. And I had a job with Fox Sports where I was actually travelling away on Saturday morning and going calling games on a Saturday night and sometimes on Sunday, and flying home, and Wednesday night flying down to Sydney and going on like their TV shows. Outstanding. How good is this? But you go from, there's two angles on this that I've worked out, Ash, over time, is that financially, you go from earning $250,000 a year to $80,000 or $90,000 a year. Now, $80,000 or $90,000 a year is not a lot of, is not money to sneeze at. That's a really good salary and income for a lot of families. But when you go from earning X down to Y, and straight away your first thing is, how am I going to survive? Because I haven't lived in that environment. A lot of people would sit back and go, you selfish, arrogant pig, but that's the world you lived in. And it's like anything, you just have to, well, you just got to be able to adjust. Yeah, you just got to be able to adjust, and that takes time. And sometimes you can do it yourself. Sometimes you need outside assistance. I struggled. People used to say, what do you miss the most? And I said, the 2-minute buzzer. And the 2-minute buzzer was a bell that used to go off, which meant you're about to run on in 2 minutes in the dressing shed. I missed the 2-minute buzzer. I missed the buzzer going, and all of a sudden all these butterflies start, and all of a sudden your teammates start, putting their arms around you and telling how much they love you, and you're amongst this group of guys that you just absolutely die for on every day of the week. And all of a sudden the buzzer's not there anymore, and the phone calls stop from your teammates. And text message say, on our day off on a Wednesday, hey, what are you doing today? Do you want to go and catch up for lunch and do some extra training? Love to. they all stopped because they got their life to worry, but they're still playing rugby league, and you're retired, and you're thinking, how come no one rings me anymore? So I really miss that. I really miss just being around, getting paid to train professionally every day and be fit and healthy. And now all of a sudden you're going, well, where am I going to go train? I've got to go find a gym to train at now. And I've got to find, and I've got to go reconnect with the group of friends that I went to school with that I only used to stay in contact with once a year over Christmas because I was too busy playing rugby league, and you should never be too busy for your friends. But I had to reconnect with them and go again with another life. So it's really difficult, Ash, and I struggled it had a huge effect on my first marriage, I think. Towards the end of my career, I know that my first marriage was starting to wane, and then when I retired, it accelerated even more. And then we separated and divorced not long after I retired and moved back to the Gold Coast. We've got two beautiful kids who are tremendous kids and have grown up to be really well balanced kids. And I was fortunate enough to re-partner and marry my now wife Beck, who's actually been my lifesaver. Like, she does yoga, and she's a real spiritual thinker, and she does Reiki. And whenever I'm feeling stressed, she calms my center down. And she's but during that period before I'd met Beck, I was one of those people who go, I don't need a sports psychologist. If I can't play this game without anyone else's help, I shouldn't be playing it at all. So I didn't believe in sports psychologists. But then I used to meditate a lot during when I played rugby league, but I didn't know it was meditating back then. But now I've been educated that what I was doing before games, I used to meditate a lot in my own way, which used to calm me. So when I retired, I meditated a lot, and my wife Beck introduced me to that. But I also got some outside help. I went and saw a psychologist about where's my life going. So he was really good at helping me find my balance, and basically it's like he grabbed me by the shoulders and just shook me and said, welcome to the real world. This is how real people live.
Yeah.
And so it took me, it probably took me 18 months to a couple of years really to get through that. And then it took me another couple of years to feel really comfortable, really comfortable and where I was going. And who cares about what job you've got? Who cares what people think of you now that you've retired and you expect to be doing A, but you're actually doing B. And don't sweat the small stuff. And my mum used to always have a book when I was growing up. And I remember it used to always be on next to her bed. And he used to always say, don't sweat the small stuff. And I never really knew what it meant. I never really appreciated it. But when I got older and realised that, you don't really need to sweat the small stuff because you just build more stress in your life. So I really learned to not fight the fights that are not worth fighting. But, get on my bad side, something I really want to protect, I'll protect to like my life depends on it. But I've really learnt not to really sweat the small stuff.
And are you enjoying being involved with the game now, looking at, honestly, from a different perspective? You're on the outskirts now, calling games, and from a completely different perspective, do you find that you found your happy place now?
Yeah, people say, do you regret anything in life? And people go, no, I don't regret anything. I do. I regret, I've got my own personal private investigation firm, which we've got agents around the country. We've got an office in Bali, and we do a lot of work overseas and for law firms. And I was always a frustrated police officer. I joined when I was 18. I wasn't able to continue with it because I started playing rugby league, and you couldn't do one or the other at that stage. So I regret not joining the police force. I still, to this day, it's this burning itch that I've never joined the police force. So I've gone back to university and I've studied criminology, and because again, it's one step closer to, having my own investigation firm, which I really just fell into through a colleague of mine. And again, it's a glorified police officer, like a frustrated police officer. So I'm doing all these things around it without actually going and getting the badge and the gun. So that's one of my greatest regrets, that I never joined the police force, and maybe I might do that in my next life. I try and live vicariously through my children. I'm getting them to try and join the police force every month. But, I'm really happy with what I'm doing. I'd really love to get back involved in rugby league from an administration level. I think I've always had a talent for talent identification and also recruiting and retention. So I'd love to be able to get back involved one day, but I've got to say, the media gives you another angle, like you said, Ash, and it doesn't come with the pressure of working in the game on a day-to-day basis. So you're able to go and commentate a game or go into a studio, make a comment and live by that comment. Pack your little bag up and leave the studio and off you go home. You don't have to worry about anything else. I'm not huge on social media, so I don't sit there and read a lot of stuff people say about me or other things about the game. So, and I do that deliberately because I know that if I did engross myself in it, it would make me angry. It would make me sad. It would make me all these, and I don't want to put myself through that. So, but all in all, like emotionally in my life, my wife Beck has been an angel that I thought has just been sort of waiting in my life somewhere until we actually found each other. So to think you find each other late in your life, when I was sort of 36, 37, I didn't think that would ever happen. But she's been amazing for me. She supports me in everything that I do, and some crazy ideas I come up with, and she just says, "Yep, that's what you got to do. You go and do it. If that's your passion, you go and do it. If it doesn't work out, well, we'll readjust and see what happens." So she's been really good for me.
That's amazing. And you talk a lot now about focusing on looking after your mental health and tapping into that spiritual side. Do you feel that you're ashamed of that, being there is almost a stereotype attached to that, especially amongst men?
Do you know, I know I've used this saying a badge of honor. I wear it as a badge of honor that I went through, and I'm not going to say that I was going through depression, because I wasn't diagnosed with it, but I just felt sad every day, and I was always one of those guys that was brought up by my father to say, don't ever show anyone your weaknesses. He famously broke his jaw in the 1970 grand final in 4 places, and he went over to one of his teammates, Michael Cleary, and said, "Hold me up, don't let them know that I'm injured." And I know that's a rugby league thing, but that's also a little bit of I suppose, a metaphor for men in life as well. Don't let anyone see that I'm damaged or injured. And I went through a period there where I had a really good friend who I had only known for about 12 months, but for some reason I felt really comfortable talking to him. And I used to always throw all my stuff onto him, and he sat there and listened to it. And so I was never too ashamed to sort of talk to him about it. He made me feel really comfortable. And he was the one that convinced me to go and see a psychologist. So I went and saw a psychologist, and he was great. And so, whenever I go and talk to small groups and youth groups and things like that, I wear it as a badge of honor. I say, there were times that I actually thought about planning about driving my car off the end of the spit at Main Beach, because I just thought, I wasn't seeing my kids at the time. I didn't see my kids for 4 years. It was an ugly divorce battle, and I'd go and see them at their sport, and they wouldn't come and talk to me, but I'd go every week. I'd turn up every Wednesday for our allocated pickup times, or every second Friday to go and pick them up as per what the orders said, and they'd never be there, or they wouldn't come with me, and I'd have to readjust myself and say, rightio, don't get upset, don't get angry, But I talk about it quite often now. But I went through those periods when I thought the easiest thing would be just to. And I say this. I'm very sensitive to. A lot of the debates around suicide and things like that. And I say this about myself. I didn't take the easy way out, and I think it is a really easy way out. And I think a lot of people do it for a number of reasons, Ash. And I'm got to be really sensitive about my words here, but I've had friends that have that have taken that option, and I've seen the devastation that it leaves behind, and I get angry about it. I get so angry about it, and I knew that when I would come up with these harebrained ideas where I'd say, right, that's it. On Friday night, I'm going to finish work and I'm going to drive my car off the end of the spit. And my kids are going to be better off without me because I'm a basket case. This is before I'd met my now Beck. This is when I was just me. I was living in a little unit on the Gold Coast by myself, and I'd left the Gold Coast Titans, and I didn't really have a lot of direction in my life, and I wasn't seeing my children. So I was going to do it to make a point. I was going to do it to make a point to say, you know what, and it would have been the wrong thing to do. So I didn't take the easy option out. And a lot of people say to me that I'm harsh in my criticism around that, but I just see the devastation that it leaves behind. And so, you know, I'm really happy in my life right now. And when I talk about mental health, you know, I went through, for me, it was bad. For other people, it's a drop in the ocean. And what I went through was a drop in the ocean for the struggles a lot of other people have had. But for me, it was overwhelming at the time. So to talk about it, I'm actually proud to talk about it, to be quite honest. And as I've got older, and as we get to these ages where, you know, we have got the sort of last chapter of our life from 50 onwards, you know, we're sort of thinking, what's the next part of my life look like? You know, you got all these rugby league injuries where you can't walk properly, and you know, you can't grasp things properly with your fingers and hands. And but I train with a group of guys, and there's about 15 to 20 of us, and we train 3 or 4 days a week, and we are so supportive of each other, and no one has to talk about anything, but we all train 3 or 4 days a week, and we go and have coffee after it, and we don't talk about mental health or how we're feeling. We talk about how we take the piss out of each other, we muck around, we have fun, but everyone in that group knows that if one of us is struggling, they just send a text message to our whole WhatsApp group, and everyone goes, okay, what do we need to do? Who needs to be there? What needs to do what? And I suppose that's why not only males, it's always been about males, have always find it weak to speak, but it's females as well. You know, like especially when we're entering into a period for a long time now where women are really independent. So with independence comes the ability to want to fix everything yourself. So, and when you become really independent, sometimes you don't ask for help. So, you know, like I said, I've probably digressed a little bit here, but I think, you know, I'm really happy to talk about it because for me, it was overwhelming at the time. Other people may look at me and go, you're carrying on a little bit, mate, because, you know, I used to work for corrective services before Rugby League went full time. And then I was working in the juvenile justice system, so anyone from 18 and under. And whenever I had a bad day at training or something like that, I used to come to work the next day, and I was what they call a screw, like a unit officer, but I'd sit there and listen to the story of a 13-year-old kid that's never had a bed. He's never had his own bedroom. He's never, you know, he doesn't know his father, and his mother abandoned him, and he's turned to, at the age of 12 or 13, was an alcoholic. And I'm sort of thinking, my life's actually pretty good, you know, so how can I try and make this person's day a little bit better? So, you know, but it's one of those things, if you stood in a circle and you threw all your problems into the middle, everyone usually would take their own problem back compared to everyone else's. So, you know, to answer your question in a long version, I'm happy to talk about it. I wear it like a bit of a badge of honour, to be quite honest. And I've always been open to people to contact me to talk about anything they want to talk about if they feel as though they just need some direction.
I love that, and I think it's really important in the world that we're living in today, because there's so many conversations starting that you need to speak up, and that, you know, men's mental health awareness and then women's mental health awareness. There's so much noise that's happening, but I feel me personally as well, just the action needs to follow it as well. And it's stories like yours and you being so willing to share your story that really helps people make those next steps to go and seek help, because at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need people taking those steps rather than just talking about it. And
You know,
amazing.
do you know what made me go and talk to someone professionally? Was my mate not tiptoeing around me. And I think sometimes we do tiptoe around some of the issues. Sometimes I think we tiptoe around a little bit too much and we make people feel comfortable. But my mate, he looked at me, and maybe it's just me. Maybe he identifies as me, Ash. But he looked me in the eyes and he just said, "Stop being a pussy. Like, you're being a pussy. Like, just go and talk to someone. Like, honestly, the way you're carrying on right now, it's, I can't stand here and listen to you much more because it's really annoying me now. Now, unless you go and talk to someone, mate, don't dump your problems on me because I'm not going to be able to help you. So I can help you as a mate, but you need someone else to. So stop being a pussy. You're being a real pussy about it now." And he didn't beat around the bush. He just hit me straight between the eyes and he said, "You know what? I am being a pussy. Like, don't be a pussy. Just male or female, just reach out. It's really easy." Someone said to me a long time ago, 30 seconds of courage. I went, "What?" They said, "It's 30 seconds of courage." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Anything you do, it's 30 seconds of courage. The first 30 seconds. If you get through the first 30 seconds, everything's a breeze. If you get up and talk in front of people, just start talking for 30 seconds and then you're in a rhythm, you're in a routine, you're ready to go." So the first 30 seconds is 30 seconds of courage. And I used to think, you know what? Okay, what's the first 30 seconds here? It's picking up the phone and actually dialing the number. And the 30 seconds is pushing send and knowing how long it is before they answer. So when they answer and you go, "Hi, I'd like to make an appointment." And they go, "Yep, rightio, we've got 4:00 tomorrow afternoon." "Okay, no worries." The next 30 seconds is getting in your car and actually starting it up and committing to it. The next 30 seconds is getting out of your car and walking in the front door and sitting in a waiting room where everyone's embarrassed in case other people are walking in or out. The next 30 seconds is sitting in front of the guy or female and starting about your journey. So it's 30 seconds of courage. And I've always lived by that. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
A really good trainer, strength and conditioner we had, one of our fitness coordinators that I played football under, and he used to always say, "If you can't change the situation, change your attitude." So they're the three things I've really lived by most of my adult life.
Oh, I love them. I was literally going to ask you next, what are your big takeaways? But I think you summed it up perfectly there with just those small little things and really emphasizing on baby steps, really. You just got to take it moment by moment and keep pushing yourself. And I think that's amazing. I just want to say congratulations on your entire career and your journey. You should be so proud of yourself, even looking at where you were to where you are now and how happy and great you're feeling now within your life. I think that's phenomenal. And to even share that success story, it's what people need to see. It's what people should be looking at instead of, people always see the glamorized version of overnight successes. There's hard work in between that, and there's a lot of struggle in between that, and it's amazing that you're so willing to share that. And I thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
No, thank you very much, Ash. And we all have struggles. You've had your struggles and you've come out the other side, and now you're doing this, and you look $1 million and you're an articulate young lady. And it's always happy to do anything for you and your family. You know how much I love you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Love is shared. And yes, thank you everyone else out there again for joining into this another Secret Sunday session. It was a phenomenal session hearing all about Scott and his amazing playing career and also his personal development. So thank you. Know that if anything today was triggering or was of a concern, that you can reach out to a lot of resources. There are people out there that are willing to listen. Us here at The Secret Burden, you can contact us. We are here all the time just to have a chat, or even if you want to rant, that's what we're here for. Otherwise, the Butterfly Foundation, the Black Dog Institute, Inside Out Institute, Fight Cloud, and the Kids Helpline, I think I did mention, but they are all there, and they have resources that are available. They have people that you can call so that you don't have to go through this alone. Once again, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us, and thank you everyone else out there. We'll catch you all next week.